This lady is a friend of mine. We go back a couple of years. You couldn't tell it by how young she looks, but you certainly could by how old I look. I'm going to need you to tell me, Talisha, how we met. I know it was uh, over the internet somehow. It escapes me because I got all these gray hairs, but remind me how we met.
I definitely know it was an internet. It was something that you were doing or something. I don't know. And then it just, over the years, we just kept in contact. And I said, yes, this is my brother from another mother. You was from,
Absolutely.
Michigan. And then you and your lovely wife came out to my first book signing concert. It was Dietrich Haddon and Jessica Reedy. And you all came down to Flint when I had that event. That was in 20, ooh.
Yeah, 20. Ooh, that's what it was.
It was about 10 years ago, actually, about
Yeah,
10,
yeah.
11 years ago. And so we've been, connected ever since. And I appreciate that.
So when we first met, you were living in sunny California. Let me see if I get the name of the city right. Temecula.
Yes, yes.
Temecula. And I always said to myself, now I know you're from Flint, but why in the world would you come back to Flint from sunny California?
Well, you know what? Life has its, ups and downs and changes. And, being transparent, I was going through a troubled marriage and I just needed a break and I needed to regroup. And sometimes being around your family and your friends, because I moved to California for my son's career, and it was just me and my husband
Right,
at the
because
time, four kids.
your son was on Girlfriends. He was a regular on Girlfriends, right?
He played Jabari on Girlfriends. He's been in a lot
Yeah,
of things. Now
yeah.
still acting. 32 years old now, still acting.
So you move from Flint to Temecula, back to Flint. Now you're back in California.
Well, I moved to LA in the beginning, and once you get to California and around those areas, you find nice places you want to live. And
Gotcha.
we decided to move into Temecula because I absolutely love Temecula. And it was a little, distance from LA, but I like the community type. LA was a little fast paced, coming from Flint,
Right.
you want to, I like that, family oriented community. So I
Fast
just
paced and spread out. My God.
absolutely, absolutely.
And Dr. Talisha Berry is the CEO of Strive Publishing, editor in chief of Courageous Woman magazine, and many of its spinoffs. And we're here to really talk about your latest effort, of which I am thankful and humbled to be a part of. Um, the Heart of a Black Man. So tell me about how that came about.
Wow. Well, I've been doing Courageous Woman since 2011, started as a blog. And when we decided, well, I have a lot of men in my network too. They would always say, well, you don't have anything for men. And so some years have passed, and I'm still thinking, you know what, maybe I want to do a special. Not a whole publication, just a special to honor men. And we did that in 2020 for Father's Day. And it was such an amazing experience, dealing with men since our network had been predominantly women. Um, and the men were just so phenomenal. And they were just as courageous as, some of the women that we have. And it was during the time that the George Floyd murder happened.
Wow.
And the temperament of African Americans, especially men, was like, everybody was like, what is going on here?
Right.
This is happening too much. And to watch that on television, I asked the men that were involved, there were 20 men. I wanted to know how they were feeling. And sometimes we have to ask men, like, what's going on with you? What's, mentally, how are you feeling? And so I asked each one of them to share with me how they were feeling. And they did. And their answers were so significant that it just pierced my soul. And I wanted to create something and give them a platform so they could really share their hearts and what they were feeling. And so we took the little snippet of what they said and put it in that actual first issue of Courageous Men. And I told them then that, we're gonna do a book. I've been doing anthologies, but I'd love to do one. So this is our first one. with men. We've done multiple anthologies, but this is the first one with men. I'm so happy and so honored to have some of the most amazing men that are part of this project. 30.
You know, and to your point, in our culture, Black men traditionally, at least in my generation, have been taught to be, you know, the strong, silent type, quote unquote. But truth be told, that strength is really a facade because we've had to be strong, but we've had to be strong through our weakness, the weakness of being the underclass of society and the heel of the shoe and the last to get hired and the first to get fired. And so the notion of suffering in silence I really think it's no longer applicable to us because we've learned, I think through necessity, how to speak out and speak on some of the issues like the George Floyd and the Eric Garner and the list far too long to enumerate of those of us who have suffered in this culture and this society. So tell me a little bit about some of the men who make up the publication, The Heart of a Black Man.
Well, there are 30 authors. Some of them, and not all the stories are about racism and pain. And, you know, I asked them to share a story that's from their heart that may have impacted their lives or changed the trajectory of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And some of their stories are about, you know, relationships or their jobs or just starting off as a young man or some things that they may have experienced. And so it's some of the stories are actually funny. So it's not all, you know, just so it's about racism and injustice. A lot of them are. But some of the men include men who are veterans, men who are in the entertainment. We have so many men. We have even Eric Mays. I don't know if you know, he's a counselor in councilman in Flint, who is, you know, he's about truth and honesty in politics.
Mm-hmm.
And so he did the foreword for us. And we have a state representative, Charles Winfrey. We have Dr. Rael Sims, who's a neurologist. We have some really incredible men, and you, my big brother. So we have some amazing men who are, and they're from all over. We have men from Jamaica, London, the Bahamas. And so it has been a joy just working on this project, and it is done, and we are preparing to launch.
Now you've done hundreds of articles, if not thousands, and cover stories that include folks like Vanessa Bell Calloway, Wendy Raquel Robinson, Monique. I know that had to be interesting. Cheryl Lee Ralph, Vicki Winans, Jody Watley. So it sounds to me like you are almost a curator of the Black experience in writing. What prepared you for where you find yourself now in your career?
Woo! Certainly growing up in Flint, Michigan, for sure. I think just being raised with biblical principles, really, just being raised in a happy family, you know, even though there's some issues, you know, everybody has issues, but I think those issues what shaped me, you know, who I am, and being raised in a community where it was predominantly African American. So I saw the experiences, good and bad. And so I'm not afraid to talk to a sister who is a drug addict or going through some challenges, because that's my community, that's my family, you know what I mean? So I'm there to support any and everybody at every level. And so I think just being able to see that, and you know, reading and writing as a kid, I used to be, you know, very conservative with what I read was a kid, and my mother was into Donald Goings, and I used to tell her, "You need to read some how-to books. What are you reading this stuff for?" And she would be like, "Girl, gone." And she would sit there with her Coca-Cola, and she would. And one day I grabbed one of those books, and I was like, "Woo!" And then she had shelves of them, and so I read all of them, and that's what really inspired me to really get into the Black experience and really even write my first novel, The Baptist Junkie.
So, as a curator of Black culture and the Black experience, where do you think we are in terms of the gains or the strides that we've made? And what do you see in the future over, say, the next 5 or 10 years for the African American culture? And then I want to dive into the book a little bit.
Well, for sure, I think that we have made some significant, you know, success, and there's a lot of successful African Americans, and but I still know that there's still some work to be done. In the communities, especially in the inner cities, we're still dealing with issues with sex trafficking. We're dealing with drugs and pedophilia. We're dealing with some issues in our communities that we need to be able to come together and find some solutions. So I think, yes, we have made some significant, strides in business for sure. There's a lot of more African American business owners, especially now, especially women. There's a lot of money being made, and we're being, the microscope is zooming in on us now. Like, okay, they out there making money. They're out there contributing to society on a big level, which we always have been. But now that they're zooming in, like they really out here doing it, because a lot of us said, you know what, I'm gonna do what I gotta do, and here I am, see me, So I think that watching so many women in our network are making 7 and 8 figures, and it's a joy to watch them and see that they're not only doing what they're doing, but they're coming in. The women in our network are coming in to help other women. So I appreciate that. So
And that was really going to be my next question. Um, the wealth gap in America is considerable. I think the average African American home brings in, I think the number was 75,000 a year, and the average white family makes triple that. So when you talk about folks in our culture making 6 and 7 figure salaries, it's very encouraging. But I live in the inner city of Detroit. If you know Detroit, you know Indian Village. I live in Indian Village, and while it is an upscale community in the 3 blocks that it comprises, it's like we're right in the center of the donut of what's happening in Detroit. And it's kind of disheartening to see all of the gas stations owned by other ethnic groups, and all of the liquor stores owned by other ethnic groups. And so while I certainly applaud the progress that's being made, I don't see a trickle down. And maybe that's because big ships turn slowly. I understand that is the case, but it just really grieves me. And I'm wondering, are you seeing some sort of trickle down or shift in the financial aspect of the African American experience? In terms of it drilling down, not just to the upper middle class and the middle class, but down to those who have been systemically disenfranchised.
yeah, and I agree with you. Just growing up in the inner city community, and I worked for beauty supplies. Back in the day when I was a young girl going to beauty school, I worked in beauty schools, and it wasn't any African Americans beauty supply owners in that community. They were all Asian owned, but they sold to African Americans only.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, you know, a lot of that has changed. There are more stores being opened for Black hair care products, but they don't get the deals, so to speak, that you know, other ethnicities get for our products. So that right there is has been a challenge, and I've talked to so many people who have, you know, spoke up about that, and actually not just spoke up, but went to create opportunities for African Americans to own our own product stores. And yeah, there is some challenges, like I said, that we still have to overcome as far as business. But what I'm seeing now, that a lot of companies have stepped up, especially since the pandemic, they're giving grants, you know, especially to women, Black owned businesses, Black women owned businesses. A lot of them have, because we're speaking up and speaking out. And so a lot of them know that we are consumers. We got to buy products. We got to buy toilet paper. We got to buy the same exact products that any other ethnicity has to buy. So a lot of us are speaking up, like, hey, you know, why are you not supporting my business? I've been supporting your business for generations. My family has. So, you know, a lot of them, and I'm seeing that a lot, that they are stepping up.
So let's talk about your latest project that's about to come off of the stove, The Heart of a Black Man. Tell us about the launch date and some of the exciting things that we can look for along with that project.
Oh, wow. Well, we are launching April 30th, and April 27th through the 30th is our Courageous Men Winning Weekend. So each night, from the 27th to the 30th, we will have speakers, which are all of the authors. So each one of them will speak on our virtual stage, and it will air on, you'll be able to see it from Courageous Woman Magazine Facebook page. And so it'll be live, and it'll be on different platforms, but you'll be able to see it from there. So all of the men get an opportunity to speak. This is like their talk.
Yeah.
So we get to hear them. We get to hear their hearts. So we're going to read about them and their stories, but you get to really hear all of these amazing men that is part of this project.
You know, and I really think this will be a platform that will be a launching pad, not only for the authors, but it will provide a platform of communication. And I tell you, one thing that the internet has done, we've all become readers. Now, we only read in 105 characters or less in some instances.
Yes,
but we've kind of returned to reading, and I think that's a good thing. And I want to applaud you for your publications, Courageous Woman, and many of the books that you've either been the publisher of or that you've written, because you know the saying used to be true that if you want to hide anything from a Black man or a Black woman,
put it in a book.
Put it in a book.
Mm-hmm.
That's not so true anymore, and I really want to applaud you for sticking in there, because I know that there were times when that road had to be kind of rough, but you've persevered. Kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a journey, you know, it has been a journey. And yes, I've heard all those, you know, myths about African American and we don't read, and, you know, but truth be told, we've been reading since the beginning of time, even when they think we weren't reading. And so it's been a joy to watch the men write and really write and tell their stories. And I love that. You know, I'm a literary person, been all my life, but I know a lot of people weren't. But now today, a lot of people are seeing the opportunity that they get to share their stories. And that's, you know, what I do when someone comes to me and they have a story, they want to publish their story. We publish a lot of business books, but there are a lot of, you know, people who just have a story, and it's about the way you present your story, how you sell your story and market it, because everybody has a story. So I tell people, what's different about your story? You know, how does your story set apart from the others, and how can it help somebody? Because people are looking for help. So looking for something in your story. That's how I started Courageous Woman. I was looking for inspiration and motivation, and I couldn't find enough. So I started telling women's stories on the blog, and it just turned into a magazine, and very grateful for the process, because it has been a process. As I've said, I started Courageous Woman with a $30 seed.
Wow.
And it's just, I had a friend in Detroit who had a thriving publication. And I said, I want to turn my blog into a magazine. He said, well, you're going to need some money. I was like, really? I was in the restart of my life. I just left California with one kid in a suitcase. So, but I had this energy, and I believe in God. When you put something on you, like, you can't let it go. It's time to move and do something with it. And I had to simply step out on faith. And he said, you need $30,000, girl. And I was like, ooh. I looked at my account and I was missing some zeros. Okay. I didn't have $30,000. I literally had $30. And I'm like, okay, how do I start a business with that? And I'm a grassroots person. And I've been involved in many projects where we had to get out there and do what we need to do to raise the funds to do whatever, because we didn't have banks that were supporting us. We had to do what we need to do. Back in the day when they were doing fish fries and selling dinners, because that's what we did.
And rent parties.
And rent parties. My mama talked about waistline parties.
Waistline parties. Shoebox parties. Yes, ma'am.
I just pulled together friends, and in Flint there was that's my network, that's my family. So I called all my friends. I need you to write. I called Dawn Jones. She was a news anchor, Channel 12. I'm like, can you do the cover? She was excited. So we had a lot of fun. In that first issue from that $30 seed, we produced 4,000 copies and distributed them free throughout the community. So it was just it was a move of faith. And so we're still here all these years later. So
what has the response been to the Courageous Woman publication?
It's been a tremendous response. We started it in Flint, and that's how we were able to keep going. The support that came about from it, and the women who had stories, women who deserved to be heard, and who were actively creating opportunities for other people. And that's what we, part of our signature is, we want to support women who are supporting others, who have nonprofit organizations that they're working with children or homeless, or women in battered women in shelters. So we look for those stories, and it has been those stories that really propelled Courageous Woman magazine. And
well, I'm really good.
Entertainment too. People want to hear about entertainers, so
right. Well, I'm glad that you reached out to me, because the excerpt that I sent you, I actually wrote it in, I think, 2008. And, life happens and priorities happen, and things just, sit in your document file. And, you kind of pulled me off the bench and you say, send me something. And you were quite adamant, and I do appreciate that.
Because, me.
Huh?
I said, me, I'm like, when I feel something, I'm like, no, you got to be here. Come on, get your story in.
I appreciate it so much till I sent you a whole chapter.
Yes.
And you said,
what's this?
What you sent me a book. But that particular writing is very near and dear to my heart, because I think that we live life according to the persona, in many instances, that was thrust upon us. Like Jacob, who in the Bible, his name meant supplanter, or one who's a trickster. And that turned out to be his character until, he had a divine intervention. And I think, so that's what my story is about. It's about discovering our default position, and then medicating that with the Word of God to find out what our spiritual character, who were we designed to be. So I just thought I'd throw that little plug in. And you're gonna make me publish my book, so maybe I need to be talking to you about
Yes,
publication things.
that is one thing. A lot of the men that are part of this book, they're like, "Oh, I'm geeked now. Like, I'm ready to tell I'm ready to get my own book out now." So that is, so I teach a lot of classes also. So that is something that I'm going to work with them on, is getting another story written or expanding the story that they wrote for the anthology, and help them get their solo books published.
Well, great. Just by way of recap, give us the date and how we can tune in to this. It's going to be a live, Facebook Live. Is that correct?
Yes, it's going to be live on Facebook, Instagram, as well as LinkedIn, a couple of different locations that you'll find it, but the base will be at Courageous Woman. They can always get links at Courageous Woman magazine, subscribe there, and they'll also, know what all the things we're doing. But they will be able to find the event on Courageous Woman Facebook page, Courageous Woman magazine Facebook page for sure, or my personal Facebook page.
And your personal Facebook page, of course, is Talisha Berry.
Yes.
And we're going to let you go because I know you've been up all night long, but it's been a pleasure having you. And I don't want this to be the last time. Stop in from time to time and let us know what's happening on the West Coast.
It is a pleasure. It is a pleasure. Always a pleasure talking to my big brother and people in Michigan. I love my home. I miss home a lot, but I love California sunshine.
I'm mad at it at all. I'm going to be coming that way real soon, so I'll hit you up.
All right.
Thank you. We've been talking with Talisha Berry, and she's a juggernaut when it comes to publishing and all things literary. And you want to be sure to hit her page coming up April 30th for the Heart of the Black Man debut. I'm going to be a part of it. I'm excited. And we want to make sure that you are there because information is power. And without it, we are destitute. So again, my thanks to you, Dr. Berry, and we'll talk to you soon. God bless.
God bless.